The Human Genome Project was an international research project with the goal of sequencing and mapping the human genes. It launched in 1990 and was completed in 2003. Imagine the work involved in figuring out the functions and consequences of every single gene. Now scientists are involved in the voluminous and continuous work of studying the effects of interactions between these genes and the effects of different kinds of genetic mutations. Remember that most physical and psychological traits are polygenic, meaning determined by more than one gene pair. Furthermore, genes at times have mutations. A gene mutation is a permanent alteration in the sequences that make up a gene and can be hereditary or acquired. Hereditary mutations are those that one inherited from their ancestors. They are present in all of the person's DNA, in other words, every single cell in their body. They are part of that person's heredity. Acquired mutations are those that occur during the person's lifetime from some environmental influence, for example, ultraviolet radiation. They are only present in certain cells of the body. If these cells happen to be the egg or sperm cells, they can be passed on to offspring. If not, they cannot be. Although they are not part of the original person's heredity, they may exert effects on a specific trait or characteristic in that individual. Isolating a gene or genes that are responsible for sleep disorders is important because this could lead to pharmaceutical treatments for humans. For instance, a pill that would block the harmful chemicals that these genes can produce. For more consequential disorders, it could lead to the particularly exciting future option of transplanting healthy DNA, some of which is already being done today. Think this kind of gene transplant therapy is far off from major diseases? Scientists in Oregon made a breakthrough when successfully transplanting healthy donor DNA in human embryos in the middle of 2017, replacing harmful DNA that programmed for a serious heart disease. Let's now look at some sleep disorders and their now known genetic links. Circadian rhythms are now known to be largely genetically driven. Can you recall what nucleus functions as our master clock? That would be the suprachiasmatic nucleus, right? In one disorder that is called arrhythmia, SCN, so suprachiasmatic nucleuses do not function properly. A famous study by Ralph and his colleagues in 1990 involved hamsters who were arrhythmic. No rhythms could be detected in their behavior. Scientists replaced their SCN cells with those from healthy donors. Not only were their circadian rhythms restored, but their circadian genotypes then matched the genotypes of their healthy donors. Pretty cool stuff, huh? Number 2, narcolepsy is a neurological disorder characterized by sudden brief bouts of sleep at random times. In 1999, 9 years after the Human Genome Project began accumulating data, Thanikel discovered that a specific gene causes symptoms in mice and dogs that resemble the symptoms that are associated with narcolepsy in humans. The narcolepsy gene in animals produces a chemical in the brain called orexin or hypocretin. Remember this one with 2 names and its strong, prominent role in promoting wakefulness? A similar mutation in this gene may result in reduced levels of orexin hypocretin and thus may underlie narcolepsy in humans. In 2009, a researcher named He and his colleagues at the University of California, San Francisco discovered a rare gene mutation that allows some people to feel refreshed on much less sleep than the normal population, as little as 4 hours a night. This finding led credence to some of the reports of a need for only 4 hours of sleep. But remember that most of those who reported this tested to be sleep deficient. So again, this gene mutation has been found, but it is quite rare. For the rest of us, it's 7 to 9 hours. Remember Lavi's 2009 study of the few Israeli soldiers who couldn't handle night watch assignments? These were good soldiers. They were as motivated, dedicated, courageous, and valiant as their counterparts. They just could not do night watch. He found it really was biologically impossible for them to stay awake that long. Researchers have since found a slight genetic variation in one or more genes that results in being much more vulnerable to the adverse effects of sleep loss. While there is not a technical name for this disorder, these individuals are sometimes called shift nodders because they tend to nod off asleep during long shifts. Those with the shift nodding condition are more vulnerable to sleep loss within one night, making it much more difficult or impossible for them to stay up for 24 hours. This condition is not as rare as our extremely short sleepers. In fact, it has been found in 10 to 20% of the population. Remember, this same condition can result from mutations in different genes. The most common example occurs when a person has a mutation in one or more of the genes that control the sleep drive. This can result in a much stronger sleep signal than normal, building up over time. As a result, he or she may be less likely to develop insomnia than the average person. However, he or she may find it much more difficult or impossible to cope with a job that requires working 24-hour shifts, as often occurs for some occupations like soldiers on night watch and physicians during their residency training.